Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I'm honored to have Mike Harris with me today. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me.
It is great to have you here. I'm looking forward to this. I will share right off the bat that Mike and I are in person, which is kind of cool. A lot of these are on Zoom these days, so it's kind of extra fun for me to look someone in the eyes while I talk to them. Although I guess we kind of do that on Zoom, but it's not the same.
No, there's an intimacy that is lost over the cyber mainframe. I think there's something nice about being in the flesh.
There is. And so I can promise everyone listening, we're going to chat for a good while. We actually chatted way long before we started recording because it's so much fun to talk to other human beings. Honestly, isn't that why podcasts are popular? Because there's not enough human contact anymore, so we seek it this way.
I haven't spoken to another human being. In weeks, I've been preparing. I've been retaining all of my dialogue for this.
That is wonderful to hear. All right, well, I'm going to introduce Mike by adding that Mike made the short film I Am the Devil, which was an official selection at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2020. Excellent film. I'm a big fan of it. If you want to hear a super in-depth chat about it, we did a Zoom Q&A because, for those who can't do the math, November 2020, there was no in-person festival. It was a virtual festival for Sherman Oaks. And so all the Q&As were done with Zoom. And I remember having a really good talk with you.
Yeah, that was a good one. God, what was going on in 2020? I completely space on why we couldn't do that in person.
You know, it was just the theater had water damage. I forget.
Yeah, it was something.
We were hearing rumors of a vaccine for something. In November, it was just funny because November 2020, people submitted to the festival and we were all hoping we'd be back in the theater, right? And that did not happen.
Oops.
But more exciting news, if you want to see this film, I Am the Devil, which I freaking love, which we will discuss here, but I will also refer you to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival website if you want to hear our in-depth talk about just the film, because this podcast is going to be more about Mike and his history as a filmmaker. But if you want to see this film, and you should, I Am the Devil is going to be in the Discover Indie Film TV series in Season 7. I don't know which episode yet, but I actually kind of know January 15th is going to be the release date for that.
Hey.
And I even did a little math over the weekend because I had to figure out how many podcasts I've recorded, and I'm actually picking up the release process. We're doing 3 podcasts a week instead of 2. So exciting. So I'm pretty sure this podcast is going to be released on December 14th. So you only got to wait 4 weeks to see the film as part of the Discover Indie Film TV series. Maybe the only TV series on Prime Video that was born from a podcast. Because, I'm just going to brag for a moment I'm just going to share that the reason the Discover Indie Film TV series happened is because I started this podcast just because the Q&As at the festivals, and we do long ones, we do 15 minutes at the theater, but I was like, that filmmaker had so much more to say. So we just started inviting people over and talking about them and their work for a good hour or so. And all the guys, sexist term, all the people who made shorts would tell me their films were just on Vimeo or YouTube. And all the filmmakers who made features would tell me that their stuff was on streaming. And I finally said to a bunch of short filmmakers, why don't we put all the shorts together into a TV series and put it on Amazon, Prime Video Direct? And it was beautiful. It's a great series. I can promise you, if you're listening to this and you like films made by people who truly give a shit about their work, and they're not, because no one sits down and says, how am I going to get rich off a short film? It just doesn't happen. So these are films made for the right reasons by people making them for themselves. So go to Prime Video on a big TV too. Don't open the Prime Video app on your phone if you can help it. And type in Discover Indie Film and search for it and go to Season 7 and enjoy Mike's film, I Am the Devil, in there. I can promise you this, you haven't seen a film like it. Super original. And I warned Mike I was going to give him this question. You made a super original film. So let's start from the beginning. As an artist, as a filmmaker, as a writer, you are, at times I get the vibe, you're a one-man crew as well. But what were your early inspirations? What got you into this medium?
Well, Jeff, you and I have something in common, which is we're both Los Angeles natives. And I don't know if this was your experience, but I felt growing up, the movies were everywhere. You couldn't turn your head and not see a street blocked off with, the 10Ks and the all the trailers everywhere. And I just naturally felt pulled to this world. And you would see the guys in the alien prosthetics, drinking Cokes and smoking cigarettes on the corner, like waiting until they were wrangled back onto set. And it was just magic. It really felt like magic.
Right, cops on motorcycles at the end of the block.
Yeah, and in fact, this actually reminds me of something, and it's actually a true anecdote. The first thing I ever wanted to be when I was a little kid was a magician, and then some kid at a birthday party said something to the effect of, magic isn't real, and that just completely my world was crushed. And after that, I thought, you know what? I think I could be a really good comedian. I was 5 years old at the time. I was not a good comedian. And I realized that because I loved embellishing the setup so much and never got to the punchline. And it was only after this crushing realization that I said, all right, I guess I'll settle for the movies. And
because you were a natural storyteller.
Yeah. Well, I like to think I was. The adults at birthday parties and barbecues might say otherwise. But it was after that I don't know. I just became obsessed with movies and just watching everything. And I think at a certain point, I would go to the movies with my mom or my dad, and I don't remember this, but the story that my mom tells is one of the first film that she took me to was an animated film, and I just was staring slack-jawed up at just the lights and the colors. Just seeing the image come alive in the dark was just enthralling to me. And later on, my dad would show me a lot of the films that he liked to watch, which were maybe less kid-friendly. But I think he figured, he's old enough. At 9, we can watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre together. Or I remember one year for Christmas, we had a double feature of Umberto D, which is just this absolutely crushing Italian neo-realist film, and Deliverance. And that was Christmas.
Deliverance for Christmas. So your dad probably even enjoyed, and I say this as a dad, probably enjoyed the inappropriateness of just showing it to you, right? Like he knew you could take it at a certain level.
Yeah, I think, that was a really important father-son bonding experience for us. Just like, also it was, those early experiences, I think, introduced me to the idea that this isn't just for entertainment. This can be art. This can introduce you to all sorts of different emotions and different worlds and people from different experiences. Like I really do subscribe to the thing that Roger Ebert said, like film is an empathy machine.
For sure. And by the way, I'm just going to clarify or ask, LA native, parents had nothing to do with the industry?
My mom worked for Warner Brothers in the 80s as a production coordinator. But my favorite job that she had when I was a kid was she was the editorial assistant for Big Brother Skateboarding Magazine, which was the magazine that started Jackass. So all those guys were hanging out in the office when I would, go there after school and wait for my mom to be dropped off. And just being around that kind of gnarly energy as like 10, 11, 12-year-old boy. I feel like that was also a very inspiring or maybe psychologically scarring experience.
I mean, you're sitting across from someone who thinks that the Jackass movies border on performance art.
Oh, 100%. Those I just my wife and I just watched Jackass 4 and Jackass 4.5, and it just really cemented my belief that these guys are the spiritual successors to Buster Keaton. Just all of the layering.
I'm giving Mike a thumbs up.
All of the layering of gags and just the preparation. There's this one, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's this one gag where the guys are locked in a room with what they think is a live rattlesnake, and it's pitch black. They can't see anything. One of the guys finally finds a doorway. He thinks he's out. He opens the door, runs into the next room, but there's a cast iron skillet hung right at eye level, and he just cracks his fucking head on that thing.
It's beautiful stuff. Just for the hell of it, I'm going to let you know that in the chair in which you are sitting, the non-binary person who was in Jackass 4.5 who hit tennis serves into their dicks was sitting right there. She's done the podcast.
Wow. I feel like
she's a she, they. She allows me she. So
I'm not worthy of this seat.
It was just very exciting for me. You hit Eric Andre first serve. She's like, I know, I nailed him. So that was kind of fun to talk to someone who was in a Jackass movie. Like, to me, that's a big deal.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's wonderful. So you were, but anyway, my question was just to identify that as a LA native, but you didn't get your interest in film because your parents were involved in the industry.
No.
It was surely purely as enjoying the medium.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't, a product of any sort of Hollywood nepotism. But
no nepotism, and not that you saw. But what part of LA were you in?
I grew up in West Hollywood. My mom lived in West Hollywood, and my dad lived on the West Side. So I grew up in West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Venice.
Yeah, which is very normal. Yeah, very normal areas, and So you were not pushed. You were not given. You weren't sitting there with an open door to the industry.
Right.
You were enjoying what you saw, and really, obviously, your dad showing you some of the great films of all time as a young person had a lasting effect.
Yeah. And then when I became a teenager, I just kind of like dove more into that world, and seeing the French New Wave films for the first time, and I just became enthralled with the cinema of Michelangelo Antonioni, and just, oh my God, like really seeing like the way that filmmakers could push the medium.
And were you watching those on your own at that point, or were you?
By the time I was like 14, I was trying to figure all this stuff out on my own.
And that was still an era, right? What's that amazing video store next to the New Art?
That's Cinephile.
Cinephile and Vidiots
was on Pico.
On Pico, yeah. So there were you had access to great cinema.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, that stuff was great. I remember borrowing videos from the library was great. Racked up so much library debt over the years.
Oh, from not returning stuff?
Yeah.
Or returning late?
Oh, yeah, I'll return those. And then, they wind up, under a shirt or something. And then 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh. But...
Those are the only fines I don't mind paying, is paying library fines.
Yeah, it's an important institution to support. We can't have what happened to Alexandria happen again.
Agreed. And now that it's digitized, maybe we don't have to worry. But or maybe we do have to worry.
I mean, digital archiving, don't kid yourself. I mean, data can get wiped.
And I know William Gibson, this is such a tangent not to push you on, but I remember seeing William Gibson, who is a writer I really like, saying that once all the books are digitized, how will we keep them from changing them? And I hope he's wrong. But anyway, back to you. So when did you first get your hands on a camera?
I think I first got my hands on a camera when I was 11. It was like I think my mom had used this VHS camera to film me as a baby and then never used it again. So I remember trying to figure out how to do stop motion animation, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess that's not happening again. And then I would I grew up in West Hollywood at the time. There were not a whole lot of kids in my neighborhood. And so but I wanted to make movies. So I would, play every part. I would dress up and I would hit record, run in front of the camera, do the part, hit stop, move the camera, dress up as a new character, and so on and so forth, and sort of jerry rig a movie together that way.
Editing in camera, even?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't know what an editor was. I had no idea. I just thought, yeah, you shoot the video, and that's the movie.
But it also sounds like young Mike understood editing, right? Understood when you were watching films, you were taking in that, like, it is cutting. Like, a lot of people assume, I think a lot of kids assume that it's played out like a play and the cameras just happen to be there, like an old 70s sitcom.
Oh, yeah.
But you were doing the edits.
Yeah, and then I remember at a certain point we got the internet at the house, and that was for the young people out there. You cannot imagine what a game changer the internet was. Suddenly, you could look things up. You could say, who made such and such a movie? Who were they inspired by? And so you just, like, to this day, I still think of the internet as it's just a research machine.
Yeah, and IMDb was kind of an amazing thing to have created. It was created for all the right reasons in the beginning, too.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, being able to suddenly just see this spider web unfold across history. You're like, oh my God, I had no idea.
And did you have, I bring this up sometimes, did you have that transition where you went from wanting to see the work of actors to following directors' careers?
No, I think pretty early on I liked directors. I knew who, Tim Burton was. I knew who John Ford was. I think pretty early on I knew that, no, there has to, I think probably because of that early experience of running back and forth behind a camera, I thought, man, there's got to be someone behind this thing to hit it.
If I only had a sibling. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Well.
Oh, is there a sibling? Did I just...
No, there isn't. There isn't a sibling. No, maybe there's some Elvis Jesse Guerin anecdote that my mother never told me about, but no.
Fair enough. So you were playing with that camera and having fun with it. At what point did you... So tell me, was it middle school? Was it high school? Did you pursue a little more?
Yeah. No, sorry. In high school, when rudimentary nonlinear editing became a thing, I would try at every opportunity to let my teachers, or to convince my teachers to let me do a video instead of a big paper or something like that. And eventually it got to a point where I'd figured out enough of this stuff that other kids in the class were, can I be in Mike's group to work on the video? And we did some pretty cool stuff. I remember in one, history class, it's kind of embarrassing, but one of our final projects, we did a revisionist history of what happened? What would have happened if prohibition had never been repealed? And it just kind of became this goofy, 1930s gangster thing where the kids are just chomping on rolled up pieces of paper to look like cigars, and just goofy fake Tommy gun gags. We did a really good. My best days are behind me, Jeff. The peak of my filmmaking career was as a senior in high school. We did this adaptation of Madame Bovary that we did it as like a parody of a 1950s melodrama, and just, you know, with just all the tears and all the Douglas Sirk garish lighting, the whole thing.
I'm noticing comedy is a thread.
Yeah, it's surprising that I feel like most of the work now is pretty straight faced, but I like a laugh every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, not to jump to I Am the Devil. Lord knows we got a lot to cover. Yeah. We still got college and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, you got to let your comedy side show sometimes.
Well, maybe the next one.
Maybe the next one.
You know, I maintain there are a couple of moments of I Am the Devil that are kind of funny, but you kind of have to squint for them.
For sure. All right, so
college.
I love that. I love the idea that you got known at high school as the person who could do these video projects and like sell them to teachers, and that other kids started wanting to work on them. Like, that must have felt really good.
Well, I wasn't the only kid that was doing that. Like, I mean, again, it was, you know, they were all LA kids. So like there were a bunch of kids that were making films as, you know, final projects and stuff. But
all right, well then I believe you have, and now I have insider info on Mike, because you had some interesting choices for college.
Yeah. So I am technically a University of Texas dropout. I got into UT Austin, was the best film school that I could get into, and I also got into the University of California at Berkeley. And I couldn't decide which one I wanted to attend. So the deadline was coming, and I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll just say I'm going to both, because I couldn't make a decision. And I went to Austin, and the program was amazing. The resources incredible, faculty, everything was gangbusters. But I woke up one morning. It was 8 o'clock, and it was 98 degrees out. And I just thought, man, this is an inconsiderate way to start the day. The Berkeley climate was much more amenable. You could wear a jacket. There was not a film production major. It was film studies, so the history and the theory of film as a medium. And I ended up taking that route. I almost double majored in a couple of different fields, anthropology and English, but in the end, I stuck with film.
Right, so you did film studies at Berkeley. By the way, so I didn't know the part where you applied to both, and you actually sent an acceptance to both?
That's correct, yeah.
So early in, and then you fly out to Texas, and you move into a dorm and shit.
I didn't move into the dorm yet. No.
Oh, you hadn't
moved into a dorm yet.
It was that early.
Yeah.
And by the way, as native Angelinos, we can talk about the dry heat here. But there it's humid.
It's pretty brutal, yeah.
So it's totally different vibe. Yeah. Like an Angelino should be able to handle 98, but 98 humid, 8 in the morning. Yeah, we're used to perfect weather.
Yeah.
So fair enough. So you were able to make that switch without any kind of transfer or anything. That was
I got lucky.
Man, that shows something. I don't know. I want to throw in like a simulation matrix joke about the fact that like you somehow knew to say yes to both schools so that you'd have this later decision you could make.
Boy, I'd like to give myself that much credit, but I think it's just, chalk it up to indecision. But I do think ultimately it was the right decision. You and I talked briefly about this, but in the bottom basement of Moffett Library on the UC Berkeley campus, they had this amazing media resource center where you would go down there, you could survive a nuclear blast. It was like the Omega Man or something, and you could type on the clickety-clack keyboards of the black and white computers, and you could search the database for a particular film or films by a particular filmmaker. And then you would write down the reference number on a scrap of paper with a little pencil, and you'd give it to the guy behind the desk. The guy behind the desk would give you a VHS tape and lead you into this little room that was filled with cubicles with old boxy televisions and headphones, and you'd sit there in an office chair under fluorescent lights. I watched 4 or 5, sometimes 6 movies a day in that basement, and those are some of the happiest memories of my life. I love those.
And I got to ask, what about classes? Like 6 movies in a day is about 9 hours.
Yeah. I mean,
or were you were managing to balance it?
Yeah, I was managing. I mean, I would stay there pretty late.
Oh, got it. Right. Yeah. So it was in a way it was your after school entertainment.
Yeah, or between classes.
Sure, because why leave campus?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, actually, that's all right. So I told Mike before we started recording how I was supposed to go to Berkeley. I was all geared for Berkeley, and then I got sucked away for various reasons to go somewhere else for a person I loved, but also it was the housing, actually. I was promised like 2 free years in a dorm at UC Santa Barbara or having to live off campus in Berkeley. And as a boy from Los Angeles who had basically lived in his car, and I was told there won't be anywhere for your car. You got to come. You can't have a car, and you got to live off campus. I chickened out. Truth is, I say I went to Santa Barbara for love, but I also just kind of chickened out.
It happens to the best of us. There were the big filing cabinet style high-rise dorms off campus in Berkeley. I got very lucky. I went to one of the dormitories that was the converted school for the blind. And it was like Club Med. There's no building was higher than 2 stories, Spanish-style hacienda architecture, trees in the courtyard. It was like being in rehab. So I was there for freshman year, and then after that, I just lived with friends.
Yeah, works out. Yeah, freshman year, you get your feet. Mm-hmm. So Berkeley was film studies,
yes.
And were the classes wonderful? Did you, or as a cinephile, was it just right up your alley?
No, I thought they were great. The thing was though, you could not declare your major as film until you had taken like a certain number of classes. So like I technically was admitted as an anthro major. So I took a lot of anthro and English courses that freshman year because I couldn't get into the introductory film classes that were in much higher demand, and they didn't give preferential treatment to freshmen. But I got exposed to a lot of different disciplines. I remember one time I took a course I almost took a course in the classics department because I thought, oh yeah, I like Greek mythology. That sounds good. And I just sat in this room with all these people. I was looking around. I was like, man, all these people are so much older than me. This is a trip. And this professor comes in, and he's like a cartoon of a professor. The tweed jacket, the briefcase, the wispy white hair. He has this intimidating Oxford accent, and he's like, well, I'm sure you all have read Plato and Xenophon, so let's just jump into the thick of it. And I thought, oh no, I made a mistake. So I dropped out of that course. But then I went on the film track and was very committed to that, and a lot of tremendous professors there. Russell Merritt, J. Mira Coppell. My area of concentration was European art house films from 1946 to 1966. And so, what's really interesting about this, not to go on a tangent,
this is all about tangents.
Hey, I'm a rambling man. In the wake of the Second World War, the American studio system essentially crumbles, and the distributors, in order to make a buck, start importing all these films from Europe, and they're marketed in a different way. The branding of the European films is different from the kind of American film. They're like, no, this isn't just entertainment. This is art. So it becomes the European films get this aura of sophistication and exoticism. And simultaneously, that gives European filmmakers more leeway to make stranger and stranger films. I mean, you compare the kind of picture that Ingmar Bergman was making in the 1950s, Summer with Monica, Seventh Seal, Wild Strawberries. Wild Strawberries is a very modernist film. I mean, it's all about this guy going back through his memories. A few years later, he's doing Persona. Persona is the most postmodern, avant-garde, major motion picture you could ever imagine. It's crazy to watch Persona and think, this got distributed in America and people went to see it. I mean, it became like this Keeping Up with the Joneses thing where you would go to a theater and you would wear a suit and tie. And there would be literature in the lobby explaining the film you're about to see to you. So you could then say to your neighbor, oh, hey, Bob, I saw Rashomon the other night and I understood it.
That's fascinating, and I was completely ignorant of this. I always assumed that the art house aesthetic, in a way, that I associate with European film was because Europeans were more sophisticated, but there was actually a market influence. They were this huge market of North America, which actually was, at least the people living here, none of our theaters got bombed.
Well, exactly.
So we said to them, make it artsy, and we'll show it. And there was a financial incentive to get artsier.
Yeah, it's a feedback loop, right? Because you think about, so probably like the earliest ones, like Poland with Andrzej Wajda and Ashes and Diamonds and Canal, and Italy with Rome Open City by Rossellini. Like, they were so bombed out, they couldn't help but show the ruins of Europe. And that was like the sort of thing where like suddenly Americans are like, oh my God, the ravages of war. Look at how brave these artists are. And it's crazy. And then, just all the weird synergies of like, you look at France, like 400 Blows, Hiroshima Mon Amour, Breathless, all 1959. Well, Breathless is 1960, but you get the point. It's like just the convergence of all of this happening at the same time. It all bottlenecks, and then it gets disseminated to America. And then young American filmmakers see these films. They get inspired by these films. It's not just the junk that the kind of the meat grinder studio fare. You can feel the influence of those films on the young American filmmakers of the late 60s and early 70s. Easy Rider is extremely influenced by the avant-garde. The shot that I love in Taxi Driver, when Robert De Niro is talking to Sybil Shepherd on the phone and he's trying to convince her to go on another date with him, and she just clearly wants nothing to do with this guy, and the camera just dollies ever so slowly away from him and just focuses on an empty hallway for the duration of the phone call. That is clearly an Antonioni shot. But, that's the evolution of film language. And I think, one of the things, to tie it all back to Berkeley, one of the things that I'm really grateful that institution taught me is an appreciation of the history, to know that these things come from particular places.
Yeah, and that's something we discussed before we started recording, was talking about the difference between a production-focused degree in film and a film studies academic study of film degree, which is what you've got. Which was my way of saying, when I watch your work, I think I see it. I think I can see that there's a deeper understanding of the language of film. I think it comes out just like it's funny because the people who are inspired by Scorsese and haven't gone and looked at what inspired Scorsese, you end up just with Goodfellas ripoffs.
Well, yeah, and it's a shame because I feel like, not long ago, my wife and I watched Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And the beginning of that movie, it's like The Wizard of Oz. And then it translates to, I think, Tucson is where it ends up. but it's like, oh man, like that's a wonderful little picture. That's almost, it's almost his response to Wanda by Barbara Loden. But, again, it's like, I think it's really important to understand that like these things don't happen in vacuums.
Yeah, and the business of film creates these feedback loops where Scorsese, who, did all kinds of different stuff in the 70s, ends up making one crime film after another because he's got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And I think I recall after the Passion of the Christ, he put too much of his own money into it or something.
Oh, you're thinking of Last Temptation.
Last Temptation. I'm sorry. I named the Mel Gibson one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a crime. But anyway, although I like both films, but Last Temptation, he was like, I'm broke. He like publicly stated how much he needed to make some paycheck films.
Well, and then does Goodfellas immediately follow Last Temptation?
It might.
Or when is Color of Money?
I don't know. I'd have to look. Yeah, but then he's like, hell yeah, I'll direct a Tom Cruise movie. Why the fuck not? Yeah. Sequel to the Gambler? Yeah.
The Hustler.
Hustler. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, my memory sucks now. I appreciate being.
I'm like a backseat driver when it comes to film.
No, but I need that. Maybe I'll start I'll pull you into some Zooms.
I'll be the Andy Richter to your Conan O'Brien.
Or you could just type the correct stuff to me, and then I can say it so that my film because you get to a point where you can't remember anything.
But I think that's an interesting phenomena, though. There is, I feel like, a proud lineage of filmmakers with their backs against the wall, where the studio kind of realizes, you like Icarus, you flew too close to the sun, and now you have to make one for us. Like, I don't know if that's the case with Scorsese and Goodfellas. I do know that the pacing of that film is insane, and he explicitly went out to make a film. On record, he said he wanted to make a film that felt like the first 5 minutes of Francois Truffaut's Jules and Jim for the entire duration of the film. And the first 5 minutes of Jules and Jim is this breakneck montage that just goes through, years and of these guys' friendship. But I'm going off of a tangent on my original tangent, which is filmmakers that have to make entertainment after failing with their art. And I think about after Fritz Lang did Metropolis, that was a huge financial debacle. And the German film studio said, "Okay, now you gotta make us a hit. You had your fun. Now put people in the seats." And he makes this film that's just called Spies. And man, this is one of the greatest. Like this film is so fun. I mean, there's murder, intrigue, sabotage. I won't give it away, but it ends with one of the funniest and grimmest jokes I've ever seen a film end on. But anyway, that ended up being a big hit. And, Hitchcock, ditto. Vertigo was a financial disaster. And he said, okay, I got to make one that's pure entertainment. And he comes back with North by Northwest. And that film, if that isn't one of the most entertaining films of all time, it gives it the college try.
For sure. All right. So, and all this started with the tangent. Didn't mean to just say for sure. All this started with a tangent of your film studies degree.
Right.
That was academic study of film.
Yeah.
So during that, I guess I'll ask the obvious question of, were you still getting to play with the camera a bit on your own time?
I was still making films. I was actually the president of the film production club. So I was, offering support to other students, trying to encourage them to make movies as well. I did do a film for part of my thesis, but it being film studies, I still had to do a 30-page defense thereof. So it was all about cinematic depictions of time and memory. But I had made this picture that it was kind of my take on a Bonnie and Clyde Love on the Run story, but this bank robbing couple, but the girl had suffered a head injury during their last heist and no longer knew who she was or who her lover was, and it became this whole star-crossed. One of my professors really hated it. He really dug into me. He's like, you wrote this really intense paper about time and memory, and you made this kind of boring melodrama. And but you need those kinds of like harsh criticisms to kind of callous your skin a little bit.
And I'm going to ask this question solely because this might be the only time in my life I get a Berkeley Film Studies grad in here to ask this question of. But because I'm always talking to the people who moved to LA for film. We got a lot of good film schools in the LA area, and obviously. So are the professors up in Berkeley, is there sort of a pride at not being near Hollywood? Like, are they pushing people? Like, he didn't like your Bonnie and Clyde thing. He's like, I wish you'd done, that criticism.
Yeah, he wanted me to make something that was more abstract and avant-garde, and I was like, I think I like narrative. I like telling stories, and
yeah, so they're proudly anti-Hollywood up there.
No, I wouldn't say that, because there is an appreciation of Hollywood. Like, one of probably the best theoretical class I took in college was about Hitchcock. And I just thought, oh my God, like the way that we discuss these films, because I had obviously seen Hitchcock's films, but I never really paid attention to them on an academic level. And it was taught by this guy, D.A. Miller. Phenomenal. I think he since has published a book that was kind of written from the angle that this class was. And it was all about hidden Hitchcock. How, Hitchcock is this kind of unimpressive, dumpy looking guy, but he's so fucking smart, and he's the master of every single frame. And that's why the cameos are such a gag, because he's the guy with the oboe trying to get on the bus, but he's also the puppet master pulling all the strings and making all these bad things happen to everyone. Miller said that he was inspired to focus on this when he was watching Strangers on a Train late at night. And during the scene when the killer is at the carnival and he's following the Farley Granger's wife down the tunnel of love, there's this weird carnival music playing, and Miller could recognize that, oh, that's Babyface. So he's on his couch late at night singing along to the carnival music. He's like, Babyface, you got the cutest little baby face. And it gets to the point where he sings, I don't need a shove when I have your love. The moment he sings shove is the moment when the gondolier shoves the killer's boat after Farley Granger's wife, and he just sits up in his apartment. He goes, oh my God, I can't believe it. But it's that kind of attention to detail that is so subtle and yet is kind of the whole thing at the same time.
Yeah, Hitchcock is an amazing example of that attention to detail. And it's easy for us in 2022 to think of him as the artiste, but hugely successful director and became a household name, and obviously pursued being a public personality and hosting a television show and whatnot. Like he was a Renaissance person.
Yeah, I mean, he started in the silent era. He was painting the intertitles. That was his first job. And you get the feeling of it. It's almost like a revenge, right? Because, again, he's this fat, bald guy. I mean, I don't know this for certain, but you can probably guess. This guy was a virgin until his wedding night at 25. And by the end of his career, he is, to this day, we refer to him as the master of suspense.
Absolutely. All right. So, by the way, cool that you were the president of, so there was a film production club.
Yeah.
So almost everyone in there, I assume, was in the film studies major, but that was...
No.
no.
It was people from all sorts of disciplines that just wanted to make pictures.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So that must have been really fun, and what a great way to crew up and collaborate and have, because Lord knows you need bodies.
Yeah. No, I had dinner with a friend from the old film club days last night.
Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. All right, so I assume you finished there, and I believe you did mention that you made the Bonnie and Clyde inspired film for your thesis.
That is correct.
Thesis tells me that's what you did to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, and so I moved back down to Los Angeles, and the summer before my last year at college, I interned for the Weinstein Company. Haha. And
in New York?
No, in Los Angeles.
Okay, they're at the LA office.
Yeah, and so they were never there. Actually, there was one time Harvey came to the LA offices when I was there, and oh man, it was like something out of a horror movie. This guy would walk down the hall, and you would feel like the wallpaper peeling and like the plants wilting as he passed. It was a intense presence, but coming from that experience, after I graduated college, I parlayed that into an internship at Oprah Winfrey's film and television development company, and then got a full-time job there. And I was there from right after I graduated college for about 3.5 years, and then there was a big corporate shakeup, and a bunch of people got laid off, myself included. And I couldn't work in an office again. This is not a slight to anyone who does, but I felt like I wanted to make films. That was the thing I wanted to do. And during this time period, I was working weird jobs. I was working as a mover. I still had a VHS camera, and I had some friends who were musicians, and they're like, "Oh, would you maybe do a music video for us?" And I thought, "Oh yeah, sure. I'll shoot you guys a music video." And we did it on VHS, which was very in vogue at the time, and now everyone has the apps on their phone that like recreate the blurry, desaturated effect of the VHS camera, but we were doing it for real. I, from that experience, started working in performance visual design. So if you ever went to a concert and saw the big screens with the animation on them, I learned how to animate and did that for a number of years, and then focused primarily on live directing because I had also been doing music videos at the same time. And I worked.
So very music related, both music video and the syncing of video to live music performance always gets me.
It's crazy. I mean, like I was just a designer and animator. I wasn't an actual VJ. That's a very particular skill. And it's crazy. I remember I did a bunch of content for a lot of EDM artists. In 2014, I went to Coachella for the first and only time because I had done animation for Skrillex's set. And, I looked around and saw 60,000 people, and I looked on stage, and there were my animations. I thought, oh, all these people are here for me. This is wonderful.
And they were. It's funny. I'll just not so much name drop, but like I'll go see Chemical Brothers at the Greek here, and it's just two guys at laptops, and then you're just watching the screen. It is like an 1.5-hour music video you're enjoying with unbelievable speakers, but. Yeah, modern concerts are very much about that.
Yeah. And
So congrats for getting in on that. That can't be easy.
No, it wasn't. And I feel like, the kind of, I feel like now shows have gravitated more towards focusing again on performance rather than the animation behind the artist. I think that, and rightfully so. I mean, people are there to see these people, not me. But yeah, I feel like that kind of animation style is maybe not as in demand as it was 8-10 years ago.
Sure. And it's genre focused too, right?
Yeah. EDM had that it's big, place in the sun moment where, like, oh my God, like, that year at Coachella, I feel like every act except for Beyonce and Pharrell was a DJ.
For sure. All right. So you're doing that this whole time. Are you writing scripts in your spare time and are you shooting anything?
Yeah, I am making short films during this time. I was a finalist for the American Zoetrope screenwriting contest. But the narrative stuff is all pretty self-directed. And again, it's like, all in between the music videos and the performance visuals and having a life, I'm wrangling friends together and, having them act for me. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this weird Faulkner thing where you're like an escaped mental patient. You're trying to kill this movie star. We're shooting on Hollywood Boulevard, of course, no permits, nothing. And that was a lot of my 20s.
And then, was there a transition, or what gets you to I Am the Devil, or were you hitting the festival circuit with that stuff?
No, that stuff wasn't hitting the festival circuit.
That was just for you, self-directed.
Yeah. That was kind of like the real. That was almost. I would consider all that stuff almost like my grad school, like my actual film production education. I didn't apply to grad school, and I don't have anything against film school, but it's just like, man, that's a lot of money. I know people that went to these institutions. I'm not going to name them, but they're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And I'm like, oh man, life is short. I can't be in that kind of debt.
And for that tuition, sometimes you still have to spend money on the projects you're required to make.
Oh, they're not going to fund your film.
Yeah. Well, I've heard, it's funny. I can't name the school, but I've heard of like a school that has a huge tuition and then they give you free equipment as if that's, I mean, I get it. You're getting free, but yeah, it is a huge, but look, it's
a lot of really talented people do come out of that background, and that is not to denigrate it in the slightest. That just wasn't my path.
Yeah. And Lord knows you probably have been happy when you don't have a couple $100,000 in debt.
I don't sleep particularly well, but I can't imagine how much worse my sleep would be if I had that much debt hanging over me.
Right. So, and you manage your own graduate production film school by yourself with your work, which obviously doing the animations and performance video and music video ties in perfectly with that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's, you have to figure out how you tell the story. How do you get character from point A to point B? How do they change? You have also only 3 minutes to tell it. And you also have to lose a lot of those 3 minutes because you have to have footage of the artist playing the song. So you learn a lot about the economy of storytelling, and also music video budgets. I mean, not to belabor this point, but music video budgets, at least 10 years ago, they weren't what they were 10 years before that.
They keep getting shrunk.
Yeah. But I mean, look, again, it's like music videos existed to sell the single off of the record, which was a product you would buy. People aren't buying records now. Artists make their money off of touring. I mean, maybe they didn't in 2020 for whatever reason that was. I can't remember. But the thing is, at this stage, music videos only exist because artists think they're cool and they want to look cool.
And they promote the artists, for
brand.
people to see them when they tour. Yeah, but live performance is the only. They lose money recording the record now, unless they're so huge that people are buying it. But yeah, it's the music business has, and yet I'm very happy that they're still doing it. I'm a huge music fan, and of course, I am the perfect age to think that music video is cinema because I was 15 when or 14, 15 when MTV launched and the police were saying, I want my MTV, whatnot. And it was, a music video was art back then. Like they were, the huge budgets that people wax about nostalgic. I remember, even smaller bands had actual films were their music videos. It was so artistic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And, all of it goes back to, again, you trace this back to Kenneth Anger and Scorpio Rising. And like, there is like an esoterica to the history.
For sure. All right. So you as a filmmaker, you do your graduate thing and with friends, which all sounds cool. Mm-hmm. And then, what followed?
Well, I Am the Devil. I think we're approaching this station along this train ride called life. I had written it originally as a feature film, and I love period pieces. I love historical nonfiction. I've gotten more comfortable in recent years with writing fiction, but there's still this thing in the back of my mind that's like, nothing my imagination can cook up will be anywhere near as strange as something that actually happened. And there's a tweet that's been making the rounds that's like, nothing will make you sound more insane than talking about 4 things the CIA has done and openly admitted to. And I like weird history and conspiracy theories and anecdotes about shadow governments, and this story of Operation Midnight Climax, which was a sub-project under the CIA's larger MK Ultra experiments, really spoke to me. For the uninitiated, I'm just going to summarize it really quickly. From 1955 to 1965, the CIA had these fake brothels in San Francisco, New York City, and Marin County, California. And they would lure traveling businessmen, long-haul truckers, guys that they could disappear for a few days and no one would really ask any questions, under the auspices of paid sex. And while they were there, without their knowledge or consent, dose them with LSD and then subject them to psychological and physical torture in an effort to perfect mind control against the Soviets. And the only reason we know that this existed was because in the 70s, in the wake of Watergate, the CIA got caught burning all of their files.
I forgot that. I don't know if you told me that 2 years ago, but I forgot that they got caught burning it.
Yeah, so we don't even know how many people they did this to.
Right, and what other things they might have burned before they got caught.
Right.
And how did you learn about it?
I mean, again, it's like
just surfing the web.
Yeah, it goes back to to tie it all back to that idea of the internet as research tool. And I was just like, yeah, what fucked up thing can I look into now? What's the I mean, I'm
so you heard this story and you're like, well, that's a film.
Yeah. I feel like I can. There's this sort of thing where like the more I read about it, about a particular story, there's like boxes that I can check. I'm like, and a certain number of boxes get checked. I'm like, it has to be a movie. There's no way around it. And I'm like, okay, the walls of the fake brothels were covered in BDSM photos and religious iconography. I'm just like, oh my God, you cannot make this up. It's so good. The guy that ran the program was George Hunter White, and he was more of a presence in the feature version, but he was a terrifying character. He was always drinking martinis, and he There's a really disturbing anecdote of he's in the space and he's kind of fucked up, and he sees his reflection in a mirror, and he pulls out a gun and just empties the gun into his own reflection. And it's like, these are high-ranking government people. It's really I mean,
But back then, functioning alcoholics were the norm.
oh, and yeah, like, I mean, to say nothing of the PTSD incurred during the Second World War, of which there was no treatment or discussion of whatsoever.
No, you're just told to toughen up.
Yeah.
For real. I guess that is a wonderful point. Not that we should talk about society, but the idea, the Mad Men right? We all swallowed Mad Men like a decade ago, and it was just older white guys drinking day and night, but they were probably self-medicating because they'd all served.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, I just learned to have a little more empathy for them than I used to.
There you go.
They were hurt.
Couldn't have happened to a nicer generation.
For sure. Madness. All right, so you read that story and you just right away you decide to write a feature?
I thought, okay, this is, and also like, so the feature was confined to basically only 2 rooms, because there's the room that the subject and the prostitute would be in, and adjoining that room, viewable through a 2-way mirror, was the room where the CIA operatives were. And so there was this back and forth between those 2 rooms, and I thought, okay, I can totally do this movie. It's, even though it's set in 1959, it's 2 rooms. How hard could it be? Well, extremely fucking hard. The script sat, and no one wanted to touch it. I don't know why. And eventually I was just like,
actually, I don't know why, because it's got sex and it's got a lot of commercial elements.
Yeah, you would think. I mean, I'm biased. I thought it was a good script, but alas and alack, that's not what fate had in store. So, a few years later, I thought, you know what? I think I'm just going to have to do it myself. And I reread the script and kind of got myself back into that world. And it wasn't just a matter of trimming it, but I had to translate it. Okay, how does the essence of this story translate to a 15-minute runtime as opposed to, whatever it was, 94, 98 page screenplay. And I was coming out of working on a lot of music videos at that time. And so I basically pulled just about every favor I could from my cinematographer and the woman that did all the hair in all these videos, the friends that worked in wardrobe departments to get that kind of period specific clothing. And we shot it in a friend's house in Mount Washington that had this it looks crazy, right? There's this wall that has this weird seascape painting on it, but that was how the house was. All we did was throw some red light on it and call it a day.
And so you were able to just make it, I assume, on your own dime?
Yeah, I mean, I got really lucky. I think the total budget for that film.
I mean, you don't have to share a budget if you don't want to. Okay.
I'm proud of how little overhead I get away with. That film cost $400.
Fucking hell!
Yeah.
So I'll add, people should make sure they watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, right from the beginning, this film looks highly polished. I think the cinematography right off the bat, obviously, it's very dramatically lit. You're setting up the tone. But yeah, that's a shocking number. Even I'm shocked, and I'm used to people, giving shocking numbers.
Yeah, no, again, it's and I feel guilty because now I'm I can't call those favors anymore because I called it so hard that one time. I mean, I guess maybe I could, but I would feel really guilty having to make that call again. But I mean, like, when I look back on that film, I think, my God, I can't believe we pulled that off. That's crazy. And that's just the technical side. That's the crew side. Like Chris Hudson, who stars in the film. He's a friend, and he's now like a successful musician. He was nominated for a Grammy for writing for Phoebe Bridgers, and but like at the time, he's just a bud. And I'm like, he's never acted before. I'm like, I know you could do this. I'd done some music videos for him, so I felt like, okay, now I can call in this favor, be like, now you do one for me now, and. Lauren Marie, who's in it, she was another musician. She was acting at the time. I don't think she's acting anymore, but she's primarily from like the music and performance art world. But she came in and she's so good. In fact, there's a funny story about her performance, which is she, for whatever reason, the microphones we were using on set. Her sibilance was very harsh, and the mics just couldn't handle it, and it rendered all of her dialogue unusable. So we ended up having to ADR all of her dialogue in the film in the studio after the fact, and that gave me an idea later on to make a film, which I did years later, where the whole thing was ADR'd. And, but back to I Am the Devil, then Brad, Wilson, who plays the CIA heavy. He was just a guy. I used to live around the corner from this one bar, and, I would go down there and I would see Brad, and you see Brad, he's very striking. I mean, he has such a presence. And I was like, I became friends with this guy, and he mentions like, oh yeah. I used to be in pictures, and he acted with Tab Hunter and stuff in B movies in the 80s. I'm like, you got to get you in the movie. We got to get you in the film. And he was so game and so good in it. And he brought Philippe Mora, who's seen briefly in one of the flashbacks as the CIA guy who beats up Chris. Philippe Mora directed Mad Dog Morgan, the Australian Western with Dennis Hopper in it. So there's this weird film history connection there. But
and I think that is something that your film benefits from, is I think the term I should use is gravitas to the performances. There's a heaviness. Oh wow, I'm gonna piss off some other filmmakers. But, I mean, and actually I was actually surprised at your age because your film looks like it was made by a much older person. I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But having actors with some mileage on screen instead of a bunch of young folk, I think, I don't know, as a fan of film, I love seeing people take advantage of actors who have some history.
That was a lesson I learned freshman year of college. Like, and it was the sort of one of those things where it's like you learn these little tricks when you're making films for no money. If you shoot it in black and white, that's way more forgiving on low production value. Another one, cast older people. I remember I shot one of the first films I shot in college. I cast an older actor, and the film wasn't good. I mean, and I apologize to everyone that worked on it because it wasn't anyone's fault other than my own. Because I was a teenager, I didn't know what I was doing, but this guy brought so much heat. Everyone was like, "Oh man, that guy's so..." Like the people would talk about the film just because there was this weird old guy in it. And he brought that weird old guy energy. And then, yeah, I don't know. There's something about those kinds of faces too, like the face that becomes a landscape.
I agree. I'll never understand the obsession with youth and in Hollywood, because I just, I won't bother name, but every time I see a film like Soderbergh will make a film where no one in the cast is under 60, and it could just be a romantic, but it's so much better. I just love getting, I just love seeing seasoned actors get to do what they do wonderfully.
Yeah. There's a real pleasure to it. And, one of my favorite books is called The Invention of Morel. Have you ever read this? Okay, it's by Adolfo Bioy Casares. He's an Argentinian writer. He's a contemporary of Borges. They were quite good friends. This book is about a fugitive who comes to a desert island. He's escaping something. And he's hiding out. Everything's fine. And then all of a sudden these people show up on this boat. He's hiding from the people now. But the people don't really seem to be too concerned with him. And he notes that, they're in kind of like weird old clothes. And he falls in love with this one woman. And he's watching her from afar. And he's watching her a little bit closer. Keeps getting closer still. And finally he presents himself to her and, tells her that he loves her and all this stuff. And she just gets up and walks away. And then later on that evening, he follows her into this hall where one of the people on this island, Morel, reveals to everyone that he has invented a machine that will record and project all of their action for all of eternity on this island. But the thing is, the machine kills them. And he realizes he's been watching a recording this whole time. And isn't that a wonderful metaphor for the cinema?
That analogy, yeah. We will destroy you and make you last forever. Madness. Yeah. That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So I Am the Devil. Yes. I'm going to shift us back to it. Obviously, you shoot it probably in 2019-ish before the world shut down.
2017.
2017.
Yeah, it sat around for a while.
So it took you a good while to get through the post?
No, the post was done pretty quickly. It just for whatever reason, it didn't connect really with festival coordinators until Sherman Oaks. I mean, they played a couple of places, but this
couple.
Yeah.
Because so were you submitting to festivals like 18, 19, 20?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See the things I learned?
They played at one festival in New York City in 2018. And then I think more or less crickets.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you realize that festivals have no clue what they're doing.
Well, it's just the thing with, any institution that there's always an agenda. And, through no fault of your own, you could make a film that just that doesn't fit with our programming this year. And, if I don't know.
I won't pretend to know. We just go by quality. We don't care genre. We don't care about anything but quality, which I'm kind of proud of because people come to our festival and nothing I enjoy more than hearing, I didn't see any bad films at your festival.
That's great.
For sure. All right. So proud to have you.
Thank you.
In it. And then to continue on. I have, all right, so I already know the answer, but I'll ask the question. So what did you do after I Am the Devil?
After I Am the Devil, I went on to...
And the whole time you're supporting yourself with a music video and other stuff?
No, music videos, at least at the scale that I was working on them, it's really hard.
You get sustain. Some food?
No, honestly, yeah. There were a couple music videos where I did not get paid because I wanted that money to go onto the screen. These are decisions that you can make when you're younger. And then, as I got older, I'm like, oh man, I sure like things like food and shelter. And so I transitioned into kind of less glamorous, but more sustainable commercial corporate filmmaking. You know, kind of a journeyman in that department. But on the creative side, you know, I've made a couple of feature films and some shorts that have followed I Am the Devil. I've worked, you know, I've transitioned or translated my experiences from performance visual design to narrative filmmaking. I'm working a little bit more in animation now, which is interesting. Yeah.
And just focused on that and the projects you're talking about. So you're working in what you just described, commercial stuff, and then doing your own stuff again in your free time.
Correct. Yes.
Excellent. That shows serious, as I like to call it, motherfucking dedication.
Well, you know, it goes back to this. I remember towards the end of his life, Orson Welles was being interviewed, and they asked him if he had any regrets after, you know, a very impressive but kind of tragic career in Hollywood. Not treated particularly well was Orson Welles. And, you know, he said, you know, I know if I had stuck to the stage, I could have made more money. But there's something about the movies. And it's like the guy who's in a terrible marriage his entire life. They ask you, why did you stick with it all those years? And the guy goes, because I love her. And that's how I feel about the movies. You know, I'm sticking with my girl. And I saw that interview and I thought, ooh, that hurts so much because it feels so true.
Fascinating, too. How many people would actually be in the position where stage acting and directing would be more profitable than the movies?
Oh, what a trip.
It's crazy, right? But that's because he became a Hollywood outsider, really. He was no longer embraced in that era when the salaries started, you know, you stopped being a contract studio employee and started, he could have raked it in, but he also had such high standards, such high artistic standards. And honestly, my stinking generation knows him as the guy who sold wine.
Yeah, I mean, those commercials, I mean, you can still look them up on YouTube. People still love that stuff. I mean, he's so good, dude. He's so fucking good. I mean, he's another guy who's so masterfully in control of every single frame. But it's weird, right? Because it's not the same thing as Hitchcock. Like I feel like one of the pleasures of watching in Orson Welles movie, he's another guy who's obsessed with magic. He, you know, when he did his role as Le Chiffre in the 60s Casino Royale, he would not do it unless he could perform a magic trick on camera. And so that's why in the film, when you watch it, they're like, Le Chiffre's over at the craps table doing his magic act. And then he disappears a woman over the craps table, and it takes like 5 minutes out of the runtime. But when you watch his movies, I feel like one of the real pleasures is like, it almost feels like it's all about to fall apart, right? Like he's like spinning all these different wheels. And if you watch like Lady from Shanghai or Arcadin, like some of like the weirder ones that come out, you know, the 10 plus years after Kane, there's kind of an unhinged quality to them that's really special.
And even that story you just told about Casino Royale is, even if he's saying he loves her and he can't leave her, he will not do things her way.
Right.
Like The Rock, and Dwayne Johnson is pretty rad in a lot of ways. I'm not going to knock him. But I don't think he's ever said, I won't do this film unless I get to do this self-indulgent thing for 5 minutes.
It's a shame, too, because I think he's a really good performer. He's really smart. He's charismatic in that classic movie star way that I feel like even a lot of movie stars don't have. He is in this picture from 2005 called Southland Tales that is mind-blowing. I don't know if you've seen this one.
I haven't.
It was Richard Kelly's follow-up to Donnie Darko. And, oh man, like to even try to describe the plot of this, it's so muddled. But there is, I'll just set up the ending for you really fast, and that'll give you like a little flavor of the movie. It's July 4th, Independence Day weekend. The president's big silver blimp is floating over the Staples Center while race riots go on in downtown Los Angeles. Inside the big silver blimp, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Mandy Moore and Sarah Michelle Gellar three-way slow dance. And outside of the big silver blimp, floating in midair, is an ice cream truck. Inside the ice cream truck is Seann William Scott Stifler from American Pie and his twin brother, Seann William Scott. And they touch hands, and it creates a rift in the space-time continuum. And the last line in the film is, "I'm a pimp, and pimps don't commit suicide." And
what's the name of this? I got to see this.
This is called Southland Tales. It is such a trip.
I'm going to type it into my phone right now.
Yeah.
Or I'll ask you to you to retell me on your way out.
Yeah.
That sounds fucking amazing.
It's a really interesting, I feel like it's a really interesting document of that like second,
right, the sophomore effort.
Well, it's one of those, but it's also like the second term of the Bush presidency, and it really documents that kind of like impotent liberal rage. Like there's like so much frustration in this movie, and it kind of bubbles up into this weird kind of beautifully articulated mess of a dystopia.
Excellent. Well, here you are talking about someone else's film.
Sorry.
Fair enough. You're in a microphone. Yeah. You can do whatever the hell you want. But so you've made a couple features. You've done this and that. You're good. You're gonna keep rolling with this.
I have to keep going. I got to keep going. And
yeah, you're in love.
Yeah, I feel it. And it's the same thing every single time. I think the next thing, the thing that I'm working on now, is the best thing I've ever done. But I say that about every single project.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You should. That's golf. I'm giving you a golf clap, because if it were otherwise, then you would have to divorce that person.
Yes.
For sure. Excellent. Well, is there a website or anything that people should check out if they want to see more of your stuff?
Yeah. You know what? You can go to Instagram and find me at Mike Heresy. That's HERESY. Or my website is www.mikeheresy.com.
That's nice. You got your brand.
Yeah, I got.
You turned Harris into Heresy, which is wonderful.
Like I said before, I love jokes. I get to tell so few of them.
My best friend's recording studio was Infidelity.
Nice
recordings, because he wanted, I don't think a single one, independent recording studio in Van Nuys, California tends to have certain acts there. I doubt any of them knew that he was joking about being an infidel.
That's great.
And what other things that infidel. So anyway, I enjoy the pun. This household was built on puns, by the way, the home you're in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the lady of the house loves a pun.
Don't we all?
How do dinosaurs pay their bills?
How?
With Tyrannosaurus checks.
Hey.
I apologize. It's not my joke.
I thought it was good. I think you're ready for Carson.
Yeah, with a time machine.
Yeah.
If I get a big old thick tie. All right, so Mike Heresy, at Mike Heresy, or MikeHeresy.com. If people don't know how to spell heresy, shame on them. But it'll be in the show notes of this. Now I'm going to ramble off the close. By the way, remind me to take a picture of you at this microphone. I'm telling you now while we record, because all the time people walk out this house and I realize, fuck, I forgot to take their picture at the mic. So don't let me do that. I'm asking Mike for a favor, because I'm in my mid-50s. What can I say? I don't remember. By the way, I'm looking at a thing with notes on Mike, and at the top, in a font that's 3 times bigger than the rest, it says Take Pick. So that's why I'm bringing you in to help me now. So, you just heard Mike Harris talk for a good while about his work and his career and all the cool things he does. Make sure you see his film, I Am the Devil. Go to Amazon Prime Video, type in Discover Indie Film. Right now, as you're hearing this, seasons, maybe, if you're hearing this when it comes out in December of 2022, there will be seasons 1 through 6. In season 7, you'll be able to see I Am the Devil. So just go to Prime Video, use an app on a big old TV, whether you're using Roku or Fire, whatever you're using. Go to Prime Video, type in search, and then type in Discover Indie Film, and enjoy films made by people who make them because they have to. They're not sitting around, it's not a committee going, how can we get the most profit for this IP? It's actually people who make films for the right reasons. And learn more about the podcast and the TV series it gave birth to if you go to discoverindiefilm.com, or it's at DIF Wins on social media. And I mentioned the film festivals. Sherman Oaks Film Festival is every November. You can learn more at ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at Sherman Oaks FF on social media. And there's a sister festival to Sherman Oaks called Film Invasion Los Angeles, Film Invasion, and you can learn about that. It's held every June. If you go to filminvasionla.com, or it's at Film Invasion LA on social media. And I'm going to go ahead and mention one last thing because I am glutton for punishment. And I don't have time for the things in my life I really want to do, but I couldn't help it. I watch a lot of films. I watch about 1,500 plus that get submitted to these 2 festivals every year. And marijuana is legal in California completely for someone my age, which I enjoy now and then. And I'm aware that watching films and TV when you're a little high is sometimes really wonderful. In fact, I should probably watch I Am the Devil sometime in this state. But for shits and giggles, on April 20th, we held an event at the theater where we hold these festivals called THC Cinema. So what the hell? If you're interested in the combining of film and video with the chemical compound THC, which they're a pretty good mix, go to thccinema.com or at THC Cinema, and there'll be cool shit there. What can I say? It was a really fun night. We're doing it again on April 20th next year, and I didn't want to because I honestly lost money on it, but at the end of a block of 15 short films, a voice like 4 rows behind me went, "This has to happen again." And I said, well, you know what? Someone appreciated it, so I'll do it again. What can I say? Mike Harris?
Thank you so much, Jeff. This has been phenomenal.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And I hope everyone listening enjoyed it. So I'll close by saying thank you for listening.